Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I had someone ask me, oh, by the way, it is storming today, so I'm in the bunker, and you might hear some thunder out there. It's one of my favorite kinds of mornings. I love to wake up. I mean, I love beautiful mornings with sunshine and all that, but there's just something about stormy weather that I like. Uh, I had somebody ask the other day about people after SHTF. What do I think people will be like? I think this is it's a favorite uh, topic in the preparedness world, but I think that a lot of times it's addressed fairly simplistically, simplistically, uh, and that is that people are just going to be horrible. And a lot of people are, and a lot of people are going to be dangerous. But as you can imagine, I've written a lot about that in my books. It's about people. It's kind of like the old what was that show about the zombies, Walking Dead, and where people realized it wasn't really the zombies that were the threats; it was the people, right? The people around, and that's true. Uh, People are people, and that's the blessing and the problem in itself. And in a grid down situation, as I track through my books, uh, I talk about the different types of people that are going to come across, that you're going to come across, you're going to come along, and how they either present problems or opportunities. People, you're going to have some real mean ones, and you're going to have some real good ones. And then most of the people are in between. I've always said that people aren't inherently bad. People are weak, and that makes them dangerous. Uh, when a problem comes about, you usually find that a problem, a crisis, uh, brings out in people, you can say, well, brings out the best in people. Well, that's just if they have a lot of good in them. But it brings out what a person mostly is. If a person is just mean, uh, and if they are a predator type, they are going to become more so in a grid down or an SHTF situation. They're going to see it's a world for me to go out and finally express myself in the worst ways that I can possibly do, and those people are very, very dangerous. And then you're going to have other people who, as a result, I think usually of a strong moral basis. In many cases, probably most cases, that's going to be a religious foundation. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I know some very, very good people who are just as solid as you can get, and they live a very moral life, who are not particularly religious. They just have this moral compass, ingrained in them. Uh, so when a crisis comes, you're going to see those people uh, come forward. You're going to see that part of them come out. Now, those are the extremes. And mostly you're going to find people in between. Those people who are neither mean, for the most part. I mean, they can be mean in small ways in their daily life, but they're not the kind that go after and try to prey on others. But then they're not necessarily founded in any kind of moral code or expectation. These are the kind of people that make up most of our world, I think, and they just kind of bounce around and are always going to do what's best for them uh, within their ability to do it. And these people can be very dangerous. When I talk about these different kinds of groups in my books, maybe a matter of fact, I'm about to do one for the American Reversion Channel about what happened to America, and one of our viewers over there mentioned a particular paragraph on a particular page of my first book, The Reversion, and and it showed me that he was a real scholar of the Stonemont series. And it talks about what happened to our country and why it was able to happen. And it was able to happen. It has been able. What's happened to our country? It's happened as the result of a lack of strength on too many people, a lack of this moral foundation. But these are going to be the same people that are going to have problems, after an SHTF situation. And as I track these people throughout the books, I explained that there's going to be peaks and valleys. One of the situations that Jim, the main character, is one of the main characters, is dealing with now, and now we're in book. I'm writing book 7 right now. One of the things he's dealing with is when people are no longer brought together by a common threat, and life has started to get better, and they're no longer relying on the benevolence of the people who have helped them. Now they're going to start kind of laying back, thinking everything's all right, and now you're going to again see their true nature, which very often isn't good. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by this. In a couple of talks that he's given, and I think in the first book and probably most of the books, he mentions this, and now we're dealing with it again in the 7th book. He's explaining, he says, well, the people who have come to us, and if you're not familiar with the Stonemont series, I'll show it to you right now. Stonemont series, my books, The Reversion, The Revival, The Renewal, An Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, and Hostages to Fortune, 6 novels in serial form, in which I tell the story about the collapse of the world and how a family who was prepared was able to continue not just living well themselves, but able to help other people. And as a result of that, a community formed around them. And we talk about the threats against the community, the threats from within the community, and how they are rebuilding different communities, actually, several communities that are worth living in, and going back to those basic principles that most of us pretty much agree with. So that's what I'm referring to in the Stonemont series. You can get it. And this would be a good place for me to tell you. You can get it on Amazon, the link's down below, or you can get it directly from me, and I love to do that, through our website, stonemont.us, and the link is down below. And then I get to sign them for you and write a little note in it for you, and I love doing that. And yeah, book number 7 should be done in about a month. But that's the story then is, as more people come in, and Jim explains to some of the other characters, some of his main core. He says, the people are getting along now because we're providing them food. They were out there thinking they were going to die, starving to death. And, this is during the process of a 90% die-off after a CME. So the people are out there struggling. They've got kids or just by themselves or whatever. They're having a hard time surviving, and as they either come across or as Stonemont goes out and finds people and brings them in, now they are thankful. They went from fear of dying to now some kind of security. And then as Stonemont fully developed and not only just fed them, but gave them jobs, gave them a part of the community effort to rebuild things. They gave them, food, a sense of purpose, and a structure. That is also an important thing. That as they were brought in, it was explained to them. Our rules are essentially the 10 Commandments, with not all the 10 Commandments. There wasn't a Sabbath requirement, but the 10 Commandments and the Golden Rule are the basics. You stay within those, you're going to be fine. Okay, but that's what we expect. And people who violated those were dealt with. They weren't dealt with, overly harshly, but they were dealt with in a way that not only corrected them, but let everybody else know, hey, we're serious about this. Do this. Just get along. Don't be a problem, and everything's going to be fine. But so as they did that, as they brought people in, and they built up the community. Then the community things were going well. Okay. By the time they were several months and then a year actually into this, things were going well. They were building, people were doing well. And Jim explained, and now we're coming to the point where there could be a problem because people have forgotten their fear of dying of starvation. They have forgotten in many cases who it was that saved them. And now they're going to start thinking about, they're going to start grumbling because that's the nature of people, right? They're going to start saying, well, this or that, and you live in a big house, and I'm down here not living in a big house, and what gives you the right? The same kind of stuff that tore down our country, class envy and all this kind of stuff that tore it down to begin with, forgetting who it was that actually saved their butts. And it wasn't most people, but there are some people, most people, and as we continue, this has gone through several iterations because as societies develop, we go through those different points as we go through peaks and valleys, and they're coming to one now in the seventh book that is fairly interesting. So those are the things. When people ask me how are people going to act, they're going to act however their anger or weakness or strength drives them to, and usually those traits are going to be magnified in a challenging situation. Now, many people will say, and I suggest everybody realize that not all people are alike. Not everybody's going to be a threat to you. Okay, not everybody's going to be a help for you. You have to be discerning. You have to realize that people are people, that, as I said, they're not necessarily bad, they're weak, and that makes them dangerous. People have to, too many people, let me put it that way, have to be controlled. And that's just the way it is. Probably some people will think, well, that's very mean of him to say. No, you go look at people who are uncontrolled and see how they act. And they're either self-controlled, and those people you don't have to worry about, but too many people are not. And those are the people you have to keep an eye on. So how are people going to be after it? All different kinds, right? If you've studied any kind of psychology, you understand the many different things. Or even if you don't have to study psychology, you just study humans, right? You've lived with humans all of your life. You know what drives humans if you've paid attention, right? And the dangers. You know what sets people off. You know that people can be set off as a result of their weaknesses or their fears or whatever, and how they respond to that is going to affect everyone around them. Excuse me, just a second. Now, there's a couple things with that we have to take into consideration. First is how large of a group, are you talking about? How many people are going to be around there? Most of you, or many of you perhaps, are familiar with Dunbar's number. And he what that is, and it's just a general idea, and there's different levels here, but the idea of there being about 150 people is the largest group that a person can feel comfortable having, not intimate, but fairly close relationships, knowing mostly about those people, their names, what they do, their families, their life experience, things like this. And that is the group to where an identity is most solid. I mean, that and below. You have an identity there. At above about 150, now things start to get a little bit diluted. You don't have that same personal relationship with everybody there. And so that starts to weaken the solidarity of the group. The second thing you have to keep in mind is that the family is the foundational unit of any community and society. And families are going to be the glue. It's going to be the strength. Now, we know that there are some dysfunctional families, and they can bring problems as well as, support. And I write about those in the books too. But most people are going to be mostly concerned with what's good for their family. And you don't need to have a situation to where you make people choose between their family and the group. That's a horrible model. You should not do that. By taking care of by providing an environment in which families are taken care of, you're going to develop a relationship between that family and the group as a whole, and well a I don't want to say a fellowship that kind of brings in things but a loyalty between that family and the group. And as every family has that, you have it solid. The problem here is that there are a lot of people who think about when they're creating a group to think about all those trigger pullers and all those single people that are out there. Single people may bring, it doesn't, I mean, a person is not bad because they don't have a family yet, but the single person, kind of like a person who lives in an apartment as opposed to someone who owns a house. I'll use that, and this is nothing against people who live in apartments. I have, most of you have. When a person becomes single, they move out of their parents' house, and they usually move into an apartment, right? Because who can afford a house when they're 20, 21 years old, or 18, or whatever, whenever they move out. But the thing is that there is just as it is the homeowners who provide consistency and a solid foundation to any community, as opposed to apartment dwellers who are there, kind of, they may be here this year, they may go somewhere next year. There's no real continuity or solidarity there. Just like it's the homeowner in a community, it's the family in a community that provides the stability, not necessarily the single people. The single people can bring skills to the group, but it is the family that brings the solidarity and the stability. So as we think about, what are people going to be like after an SHTF situation, they're going to be people. And that's what people need to realize. People are people. People are imperfect. People can be irrational. People can be selfish. People can be mean. People can be good. People can be helpful. People can be sacrificial to others. You're going to have the whole gamut. And how to judge and how to develop people after an SHTF situation is going to be pretty much like you do now, or like you should do now. Now, here's the thing. Many people don't do that. Many people are not that discerning about the people around them. Now, many of you are, but the vast majority of people are not. They just accept people. They don't expect too much of them. They live very, they deal with them very superficially. And the thing about an SHTF situation, especially when you're coming together with a community, is you're going to start dealing a lot deeper than superficial. And so you're going to start seeing things about people that you maybe didn't see before. You're going to start having expectations from people that you didn't necessarily have before. And outside the people in your own community, you're going to have to be very, careful about others outside the community. You can say suspicious. I would just say be careful, be discerning. And overly developed suspicion can easily develop into a paranoia, and that's no more helpful than someone who is just oblivious to the dangers of the world. So that's the thing. It would bring about great challenges, certainly. It's going to bring about greater dangers because as people, and the reason that I wrote about Stonemont the way I did, because this is how it can work well. Most of the world is not going to work like that. I'm hoping that since you're here on this channel, you're thinking in this direction. You're thinking a positive way. How do I make things good? How do I make things better than they could be? But most of the world is not going to be thinking like that. They're going to just be scrambling, trying to survive, and they're going to be at each other, And we all know that you give somebody a couple of weeks with nothing to eat, and their kids to have nothing to eat, and I mean, it's Katie bar the door. You know, it's they'll do anything, and that's where an animalistic traits will come out. But there's also people, and this is where I differ from a lot of people who feel. I'll just mention the golden hordes here for a moment. There's this idea that people will spill out of the cities into the countryside because that's so-called where the food is, and I don't believe that most will at all. Most people will starve to death. Most people will starve to death before they'll hurt other people. They just there is something innate in most people like that. Not everybody. There's going to be, hey, if 5% of the people in this country or this world are just down out mean, and it's probably higher than that, and then you get another bunch that are just selfish and will do anything. I mean that's a whole bunch of people that you might run into, and you have to be careful about. But most people are not like that, regardless of what so much of the prepper world has tried to make it seem like everybody's out to kill everybody. That's not going to be the way it is. Most people, to be honest, would rather starve than kill somebody else. And I know there will be people who will argue with that. Okay, maybe they don't have the experience that I do. Okay. So that's the thing. People after SHTF, you are got to be careful of them, but you have to deal with them properly, and with the proper selection and discernment and all that, you will be able to bring good people together, and that's your key for survival. Community is the key to survival, but only the right kind of community. And like I give so many lessons in the books, when somebody is not a part of that, when somebody wants to cause trouble, they have to be counseled or in some way dealt with, so that not only are they corrected, but it continues to send a solid message to everyone else about the expectations of the community. Okay? Think about that. Don't be unduly, paranoid about other people, but do have high expectations for them, not just afterwards, but right now. And remember, if you want the Stonemont series, if you haven't read these yet, I think you'll love them. People tell me that they're their favorite series in post-apocalyptic books, and I thank you very much. And again, it's the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, and hostages to fortune. 7th one will be done soon, and you can get them from me directly through stonemont.us. And I love signing them and sending them out to our people. So think about that. You all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And preparing well means having the right people and understanding people the right way. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.